Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. I'm extremely excited about my next guest, the one, the only Wax. He has had an amazing career thus far. Literally, I was looking through all the things that you've done and I was mesmerized. I mean, you had a band called McGregor. You've got singles, you've got YouTube videos, you signed to Def Jam, and you're kind of flag star, the kind of the YouTube video that has done the best, and obviously the song that also has more than 30 million streams on Spotify is Rosana. And it is such a funny music video. Like when I was watching it, I was generally laughing, and so such a good thing to check out. I highly recommend. And you've also done Epic Rap Battles of History, which I was a fan of as a kid, and then only in researching, I was like, oh my god, he's part of that as well. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. You've kind of accomplished a lot of things that most artists would only dream of accomplishing.
Man, that's funny. Like you have to hear somebody else say something like that to think that it's true, because you kind of you just live in the moment of like the time you're in, and you feel like it's not enough, or you feel like what I'm more on like what's next, you know what I mean? I'm usually thinking, what am I doing now? What can I do today? What's next? I appreciate that. Was a really nice introduction. I got to correct you though. I'm not the one and only Wax. There's way too many other Waxes out there. There's like a punk rock band. There's a K-pop group. There's like a South African folk singer. There's another metal band. There's so many people named Wax. Like if I would have chosen a name in the more modern time period, I mean, modern being the last fucking 20 years, I would have chosen one that was more search engine optimized.
Well, you're the only Wax on my show, and therefore you're the one and only Wax, because
The one
you will always be the original Wax, because it doesn't matter who comes next. Even if they come on the show, you'll always be the original. So
are you gonna enforce a no other Wax rule? Do we have that in Pinky Swear?
Well, if you guarantee to come on, if I ever need Wax to come on, then we can enforce a Wax rule. Obviously, you know, the others might have to change their name to come on the show. So,
okay.
So in my world, one and only, because to be honest, you're the only Wax that I actually listen to. So,
Oh, thanks, man. No, I appreciate that. Sometimes you forget about stuff you've done. I forgot. Yeah, I did a few episodes of Epic Rap Battles, and it was really fun. Those guys who run Epic Rap Battles are really, really cool people. Shout out to Epic Lloyd and Nice Peter.
yeah, I was like, no shit. Because like I was obsessed with those as a kid. Like I would just literally go through all of them. And I've definitely watched your Freddy Krueger and Wolverine one before, but it obviously just never clicked for me. And then now, like doing the research, I was like, it was kind of mind blowing in a way that like something that as a kid and as a teenager I was really into now came back, and I can be like, oh, I'm speaking to one of the people who gave me so much joy back in the day. So it was kind of like a weird kind of childhood moment that hit me when I saw that video again.
Yeah, one of those moments. You ever seen the movie Ratatouille?
Yeah, I love that.
I just watched it for the first time the other day, and it's like when Anton Ego eats the ratatouille and it takes him back to his childhood. I almost cried the other day when I watched that movie at that part. Say what you will about me. But,
well, I actually think Disney movies do something that make it very easy to cry. Like there is something about the way they do, like the instrumentation, the story, like they just know how to pull at the heartstrings. Like I found myself there as well, and it's not even that uncommon in Disney movies. And I'm like, what's happening to me as a grown man? Like you know, when you grow up,
I feel like
you're not supposed to cry, and then these movies are like, they just bring it out.
the truth is the opposite happens. The older you get and the more you know, the more likely you are to cry at a movie. The more likely you are when you see just like the love of a mother and a daughter or something like that, the more likely you are actually to get choked up, because you see the beauty of it all a little bit more than you did, especially when you were like teenager, early 20s kind of thing, you know. Once you become an adult, it actually is. Also with Ratatouille, it's interesting what you said about Disney. I have a friend that worked on a movie a couple of years ago, and it was the first time I had an opportunity to kind of see inside making an actual high budget Hollywood movie. And they'll do these test screenings and like show it in a theater to a bunch of random people, and then everybody gives notes and blah blah blah. Then they re-edit the movie, show it again, re-edit the movie, show it again. So they actually utilize all these notes. So I'm guessing that in the case of Ratatouille, they were like, did this make you cry? No. Do some shit. Did this make you cry? No, not yet. And then they worked it in until somebody like me or somebody like you, they pulled a little harder the heartstrings, harder tug in until somebody in the theater at least got a little misty eyed. And that's what it probably wasn't just a, they engineer that shit,
Isn't it crazy that they even can? Like that they even can get to a point where they can, but it feels like an art for them these days. They know exactly what kind of combination, what type of storytelling they can use.
Sure.
That exactly like, even like the score is so important. Like, I think it's especially
it's everything.
Like scary movies, it's all about the score. You just turn down the volume and you feel better because the music makes it feel bad. Like it just makes you feel this certain way. So
they have, like, if you were standing there right now, if you were just sitting there just as you are right now, literally, and there was a scary thing, it would make you seem evil if there was a scary score behind you. But if there was a happy thing, all of a sudden it'd be like, you asked me a question, was he smiling when you saw him? I'd be like, yeah, he was. It's very important.
Well, I think there's a YouTube video or like a short reel or TikTok video of like how music changes everything. And it's Eminem doing like his rap battle in 8 Mile, but the song is completely different. It's like upbeat, and it's like really bouncy and boppy, and it does give you a completely different vibe. It's just like, it is crazy. I've thought about this. The effect that music has on us as humans is absolutely unbelievable. Like it genuinely changes our mood and changes our feeling all through like the combination of some chords. And I really don't understand how it works the way it works, but it's kind of magical in that sense.
I mean, I do it for a living, and I don't quite understand it. It's really like, it's just like when you make a song, it's just like 3 minutes of sound, and people would email you and be like, I was gonna kill myself, but that 3 minutes of, they won't word it like this, but that 3 minutes of sound that you created made me change my mind, and it truly is medicinal. I don't really know how to explain it completely either. And I also think it's interesting that it's only recently that we even had the ability to record it. That was in like 1900-ish, something like that, it was common to have recorded music. But before that, all the billions of people who lived before that, they just, somebody wanted to play, if you wanted to hear music, somebody had to fucking play it for you. Somebody had to beat on a drum or play a banjo or whatever instrument they happened to have at the time period you were born in. Like we live in a crazy time period for that.
Well, I mean, look at where we are right now. We're recording a world away, literally, and the sound is crisp, it's clean. Like
man, straight up. If you watch Star Trek back in the day, we're doing it right now. Like, that's what you would look like. You were coming from the other ship and you were talking to me, and that was some shit that they'd never heard of. They did the same thing with their little receipt. There's little walkie-talkies they had. It was like a flip phone, and you see the face on it. Like we have that now. Half the shit from Star Trek we have now. I mean, the original Star Trek, to them, it was even amazing that you could stand in front of a door and it go skull, and open and close. And we had that at every grocery store in America by like 1986 or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Well, do you think that like sci-fi kind of informs the new tech? Like, do you think that movies and kind of it inspires people to be like, hey, it would be cool if we had that. Let's go make it.
Well, you're familiar with Space Force, right?
Yeah.
That's what Donald Trump made, like another, in America, we have like the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Marines. Those are the 4 branches of the military. And he made a 5th one called Space Force. And even like the name and the emblem, there was like a logo that looked like Star Trek, What's funny about that too is that in Star Trek, they have all this shit, all this technology that we have now, But on Star Trek, what one of the futuristic ideas that they were trying to portray in the initial Star Trek, like there's a Russian guy, a black lady, an Asian guy, and like this racial harmony. That's the thing we don't have. You know what I'm saying? The thing we don't have is like the actual ideal that people get along with each other. You know, we have all the technology, but not the racial harmony.
I think it's because we're still very complicated, unfortunately, as humans.
Mm.
We love better stuff. Every human is like, give me better in whatever version that looks like. But like we're still extremely complicated and unfortunately harbor natural biases. Like it's weird because like your natural tendency is to stick with your own group. Like
Right.
even if you see like at high school, it's like just the people tend to gravitate to people who are like them, not even necessarily by looks, but like by interests. Like if you like the same shit as I do, I'm naturally going to gravitate towards you. And so that's like this weird kind of human survival mode that we're in, that we're trying to kind of be like, hey, it's okay. We're in like modern society. It's okay if we like mix. It's probably better if we mix and like actually learn each other's cultures and be accepting of one another. But I think you're right. There's still a long way to go.
There's a long way to go. And first of all, we don't really know what's best for ourselves. We think we know what's best, and what's best we often think is the most convenient. But sometimes what's the most convenient is actually the thing that's going to make us depressed, lonely, and sad, you know? And also another thing that I think that there's no getting away from is no matter, and it goes with what you're saying about sticking with your own kind on accident or whatever, is like no matter what throughout history, the one thing that all human societies have in common is fucking war and violence. Like we're naturally, I don't think I'm as much like this as some people that I've met or that I know or that run the world, but we're naturally prone to violence and to, I guess, offense. You know what I mean? Like we always call the military defense, but we're prone towards offense. You know what I'm saying? People were just, you know, they're sticking with other people because they're scared of all the other people, and rightfully so, because throughout time, everybody wants to fucking kill everybody. And in those Disney movies you referred to, bring it back full circle, even in Disney movies, the hero is always some level of fucking violence. He's a warrior, you know. It's there no matter what. Any movie pretty much with that's an action movie or drama movie, the hero has some level of violence, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or capability of violence.
Capability of violence, yeah. He's a
Yeah.
peacekeeper, but he'll fuck you up if needed.
Yeah. I find it interesting because like, you know, war is, and I think you're right that sometimes we look through history and we're like, nah, it was way better back in the day. It's like, no, it was way worse back in the day.
Yeah.
Like I think now, obviously through technology, war has changed significantly in the sense of like, it is less about man-to-man troops of like actual direct combat, because like the technology is actually too scary in the sense the US and Russia could never actually go to war against each other because it's like mutually assured destruction. That is the end of that scenario. Obviously we have like Ukraine and stuff, but it's just completely different. And you're right, like every protagonist has some side of like dominance or like I will beat you at this, versus it's always like me versus someone else or a challenge to overcome, or like there's something about that, like, you know, need to prove yourself that is inbuilt in every story that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's for the people that have the most of that are the people that tend to want to be in positions of power, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry, the dude next to me is playing music.
Well, I can't hear it. So
you can't hear it? Okay, cool.
No, I can't hear it. It's all good. I actually wanted to ask you, because you touched on something about messages of artists, of fans saying that, you know, your music has literally saved their life. Is that a common thing, or does it surprise you that, you know, something that you probably never think about in the sense of like, oh, I'm saving someone's life today? Like, does it surprise you that your creativity and what you put out there has such an impact on people?
Yeah, I think it surprises. I don't know if it's surprise is the right word, but Yeah, I guess so. It's interesting, like what you said earlier, like that you were a fan of epic rap battles. When those guys make that stuff, they know all they see is a number of people who watched it. They don't actually get to experience like each individual who listens or watches that thing and what effect it has on them, you know? And yeah, it's crazy how many times, and I'm not saying this to be arrogant or something. Like it's true. Just how many times somebody's said that to me, that one of my lyrics or one of the songs has, like, they were down in the dumps and thinking suicidally, and the music's just been medicinal for them in a way that it brought them up, or even in a lighter way than that. It doesn't have to be all the way to suicide, you know, but it happens all the time, to the point where sometimes you have to really force yourself, like, yo, take this direct message you're getting right now, take this in, understand that that's a human being on the other end of the thing, you know what I'm saying? Like that's, if you have to, don't get used to that, you know what I'm saying? Take that in and understand that this is meaningful, you know?
So how do you take that in?
The same way that Ratatouille, Anton Ego took in the Ratatouille. You know, you have to block out all other things, take a deep breath, and just be in the moment of right now. Do a quick mini meditation and just take it in and take time to reply, and try to just understand that the next minute or two of your time or whatever is something where you should just be on that, you know.
Does it inspire you to continue to make music? Like, does it actually go, hey, I have more of a purpose? Like, it genuinely, it is more than just like creating music. It's like actually representing something in people's lives.
I think so. I mean, I would make music if nobody listened, but I think that if if you feel that people are listening and people that are appreciating it, it definitely gets you into the studio the next day, I think, better than if nobody was listening. I think it's definitely helpful in terms of motivating yourself to make more stuff. I think you have to be careful and not just like make what you think people want to hear. You know what I mean? Because that's a trap that we can all fall into really easily, is like just make, and I think that it's very, very easy to fall into that trap now with the way that the internet works. Like, I mean, people literally go like, they're like, what should I make today? And they go to the trending thing and they make whatever is hot right now. You know what I'm saying? And you know, and people are rewarded for that now. They're rewarded for just doing what is popular. You know what I mean? There's always been a level of that, but I think you have to be wary of, like, you know, create more for yourself than for the purpose of, you know, popularity or whatever.
Well, I find algorithms in general really weird. Like, they push a certain thing and it's like, this is really creativity in a way. Like,
I'm about to, like, I know that I have to do content, you know what I'm saying? So like there's a couple different things that people do in music where, like, say for example, if you make rap songs, you have a video of you rapping the song with the subtitles on the thing. And like I've made some of those recently, and I know that the reason I'm making them is because everybody's making them and you're supposed to make them. So for me, I naturally like have like like a fight with myself, like, oh, what are you just doing it because everybody else does it? Just do what everybody else does. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the voice that I hear myself saying to myself, you know. But it's like, that's the battle. The battle is like, you know, I'm just basically a child that wants to play with paintbrushes and shit in the back of the art class, but I'm also an adult that wants to buy a house. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to play with the fucking watercolors and finger paints, but I also want to buy a house. All the stuff that happens in between, I just wish somebody else would fucking do. You know what I'm saying? But you got to do it. You got to do that stuff if you want to buy the house. So I'm in a constant, like, I'm in a constant struggle between like wax the child and wax the adult, basically.
well, I think that's a good thing. I think if you're too much adult, it's a problem because it like stifles your creativity. And if you're too much of a child, well, then you can't live your life because, well, children have a hard time in the real world. But I think like, the weird thing is, and I was listening to a podcast about Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the TV show, and obviously did so well, but they were like, when we did our show, there was nothing like our show. It was, we just took a risk. We went for it. Some risks pay off, some don't, but we went for it. And there was nothing like that. And now with the algorithmic method that content seems to be created with, it would stifle a show like that because people are not as willing to take risks and people are not as willing to put their eggs in a really weird concept. So that's kind of like the catch-22, because ultimately what makes you a special artist and creative is that you have your own natural voice. And that if you get stuck on following trends all the time, obviously some you need to follow, but like if you're always following the trends, then you naturally stifle your own creativity and you'll naturally stop being able to be like, hey, what do I want to do? And how do I want to express myself, as opposed to, hey, how does everybody express myself? And then I'm just a number of thousands of people who do exactly the same thing. And then you don't stand out. And that's ultimately what I see. I have literally, my feed is filled at the moment on TikTok with people doing the like, gender change or like hair change. And like, this is me with long hair. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if 100,000 people have seen this. No one cares because everyone's doing it. Like genuinely, like you're one of millions who are doing the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's yeah, there's something to like doing the thing that everybody's doing, like that example you just gave about the hair change thing. It's kind of an easy thing to do. It reminds me of like, do you remember, are you old enough to remember the ice bucket challenge?
Yeah, I did the ice bucket challenge. Yeah.
You did, for real?
Yeah.
No shit. Well, they like something like that, and that one was for a good cause, so it's a little different. But there's certain things that it's kind of like it's cool that everybody's doing it in a weird way. Like sometimes it's like it's cool that everybody's doing it, but if it's like if it staples your creativity, that's the tough thing. I mean, you could argue that where's the line? I mean, we're all like a lot of people rap. That's a form of expression. A lot of people sing. That's a form of expression. A lot of people put videos on YouTube. That's a form of expression. It's like, where's the line between, oh, that's just what everybody does, and you know what I'm saying? So I think the way to do it correctly is to put your own voice into whatever it is, even if it's something that, I mean, think about it this way: making a song, making an album. Like, we don't think of making, what are you making an album? Everybody makes albums. We don't really think about that the same way we think about the hair challenge, So
I think it's because
no matter what,
even if you an album is so purposeful. Like, you can't just make an album. Making an album takes so much time and so much effort. And you can make a shitty album. You can do that quickly, but like, I can do that trend in 30 seconds versus me making an album. You have to have lyrics, you have to have music, you have to have the distribution, you have to have it all organized. And so like, I don't think it is the same. The vehicle of expression might be the same in the sense of it's a song or it's music, but your natural creativity is obviously different from others. Like, if you compare your song to pick anyone else, there is a clear difference between you and them versus jumping on a trend, which is like, there is no difference between you and anybody else who's doing
you're right. You'd have to really be creative to make that hair thing your own. You know what I'm saying? It could be done. If you had a really creative way of doing it, and then in that way, you'd probably stand out above the millions.
Well, then it is creative. And then you do stand out, and then all of a sudden, you make it your own. So
now all of a sudden you're on the cover of Hair Weekly, But you know what they say, hair today, gone tomorrow,
Oh, of course there's a pun that came in. That's always a good sign. We were talking about growing older. I think puns are a vehicle of older people.
It's true, man. It's true. That's why they're called dad jokes. I'm not even a dad, but I'm dad age. You know what I'm saying? So I just I'm always on the pun shit. Big pun.
Love big pun.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, like one of I think my favorite rapper of all time, and I talk about him a lot on this show. I haven't talked about him in a while, but like you open the door for big pun discussion, and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm walking through that door. It's a big door, but I'm walking through it.
Right, right. Yeah, Big Pun's great, man. Big Pun's great. He was really big too. Like if you see pictures of him at his biggest, like he's like two biggies, you know?
Yeah, he was
And it's
698 pounds when he passed away.
God damn.
Yeah, he was enormous. Like there's a doco on Big Pun. I think it's like 45 minutes on YouTube. It's really grainy and shit, but like they go through it. And I spoke to Cuban Link as well, but no, he was so big. Like 698 pounds is ridiculous about how fat he got. Like there was a point where he couldn't stand to do shows. He had to sit.
That's
Like,
really sad, man.
yeah,
That's like
really,
that's a an addiction problem, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's sad when rappers pass before their time. Like I think it's so common, unfortunately, in this genre of music that artists just seem to, for whatever reason, sometimes it's not even through any fault of their own. It's just bad time, bad place. But yeah,
I mean,
it is strange.
artists seem to die. First of all, we all die. You know what I'm saying? Everybody dies. So it's like people are always like, damn, that blah blah blah, blah died. I'm like, we all die. You know what I'm saying? Some people die earlier than others, but in all genres of music, um, you know, the 27 Club with Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and there's Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. Like musicians are more likely to do drugs. A lot of musicians die in helicopter accidents, plane accidents, tour bus crashes because they travel more often. You know what I'm saying? They're constantly on the road, so they die on the road. You kind of die where you live. You know what I mean? And yeah, and then in hip hop music, it tends to be a lot of violence. You know what I mean? So that's another aspect of it. And yeah, I can't think of an equivalent for like country music, how country musicians would die. Like if there were tractor accidents or something. I don't know.
I think yeah, they have less, maybe more, but I think country musicians like age doesn't really play a factor in the sense of like you can be an old country singer, whereas like being an older rapper, this is like the first generation we've ever had that in the sense of like
it's harder. It's harder.
because hip hop
It's
is like
harder.
a young person's game. That's what it's always been known as.
It's always been a young person's game, cutting edge and quote unquote cool. Whereas country, like you know, I like a lot of country music, but some of the stuff that you hear, it's like they love corny and they love like to be a little hokey, and old people can be hokey, young people can be hokey. That and yeah, you know, you can still do country music in an old style and people will accept it now. Like, you know, I still think Big Daddy Kane is the shit, but if like Big Daddy Kane still kind of raps sort of like Big Daddy Kane of the 90s, you know what I mean? So 18-year-old that listens to whatever, to Ice Spice or whatever, they're going to think he sounds old or lame or whatever. But I think it's changing now. I think we're to the point where like, you know, I think the most obvious and best example of like, and granted they're older, so it doesn't really count, but they're like Griselda. They're probably my age or something. They're in like their 30s, maybe 40s, but they're like considered cool now. But what it really is they're for people that are like a little older to listen to. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think I think that and I think that there's adult contemporary hip hop now, which is kind of the genre I'm moving into.
well, I also think like your fans have aged with you in that sense of like, you know, hip hop fans for the first time have gone through generational hip hop in the sense of like you've got fans who were young in their early 20s, even teenagers in the 90s. And then now in 2020, they're in their 40s and 50s. And so they're still fans of hip hop and they're consuming hip hop, but they might not necessarily be on the wave of the new come up, they're still feeling, they still want that griminess, they still want the thing that represents the old school era, but just with new music. And I think Griselda has done that really well. I mean, I think they just toured with J. Cole. So
Right.
I mean, they're just continuing to do a fantastic thing. But Nas dropped another album, and he's in his, I think, 50s now. You're seeing these artists from the 90s continue to create great music. Pusha T keeps making music. You know, Kanye, Jay-Z, all those artists continue to rise.
Well, those are kind of like that. Still, you kind of named like all of them. You like I feel like Nas, Jay-Z, Kanye, Pusha T is a great example, and a couple more. But there's definitely still some, and I don't want to name too many names because I feel like I'm hating or whatever. Because there's some people that kind of are they some people evolve at least a little bit, and some people kind of stay where they're at, and some people even stay where they're at and hate on the new shit, and to be kind of like the old mad kind of rappers. You know, it's like that in any genre of music. You know, like AC/DC always is going to sound like AC/DC. They're not going to like all of a sudden, like Kanye. What I love about Kanye is every album he makes has a whole new thing for it. It's a whole new art. You know what I mean? Which I super respect. But at the same time, you know, I can't think of a good example of a rapper who's like kind of the same and always makes a similar album that you still love the way it's like an AC/DC album.
I think Tech Nine is
maybe,
like that.
Maybe Tech Nine, maybe Redman, you know, maybe Redman, but Redman kind of has like a little pieces of adaptation of the modern sound, but he's always kind of in the 90s, you know. And I love Redman and I love AC/DC, you know. I love when people stick to their guns and like, this is what I do and I'm doing it, you know what I mean? So I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here.
Okay. But yeah, I think Tech Nine is an example of like someone who's stuck with a very similar sound. And obviously he's doing things, but he's got such a niche following of like, he's got his fans that love his sound, the strange music fans. And, but he's had very similar flows for years and years and years. And his fans just love the same flows. Like, you know, it's Tech Nine as soon as he comes on the track. But for me personally, I'm like, I loved you, but then it becomes samey. And that is the challenge of any artist of like, how long can you sustain the one sound? And if you can do it your whole career, then props to you. But personally, I'm like, all right, I've heard this song before in a slightly different variation. So I need.
To me, that's 50 Cent versus Drake. 50 Cent had like kind of like a method of doing melodic hooks. He basically had a melodic style. And after a while, in terms of pop music, like popular music on the radio, the public had enough. So you thought that was going to happen with Drake too, because he had kind of like a melodic style, like but he still is kind of the same Drake, but he's always updated his style. And like when you hear something new, you'd be like, damn, that's a weird melody. I wouldn't have thought of that. Damn, Drake, you're fucking updating your shit. You know, and that's why Drake has been popular for 15 at least years, and 50 Cent really had more. I'm not saying 50 Cent's not still popular or good or whatever, but his like hot run was short lived, and it's because of what you said. He was kind of a one note kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Well, I've always thought he always knew how to make songs. Like his skill set was not being in the best lyrical rappers, but being in someone who knew how to make a catchy hook, knew how to have songs that pop off and do well. And I think you're right. I mean, his best music, his best album was Get Rich or Die Trying, and then The Massacre. And then after that, it seemed to like kind of decline. But I think he is a person was more focused on being successful and making money than necessarily music. And
I mean, he said it, get rich or die trying.
Yeah, literally. But then he made a lot of money with Vitamin Water, and now he's making, his TV shows, Power, and movies and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the difference. Whereas Drake hasn't ventured into that realm. Like 50 Cent very much has evolved like into, he used to be only a rapper, and now he's like rapper, entrepreneur, like doing all these things. And now it's more like, hey, this is Curtis Jackson, as opposed to just 50 Cent. And I think he saw that.
So in that way, you would argue that Drake is a little bit more of a musical artiste, Like he's a little bit more in that zone.
Yeah, I
Like
would say they're in
an
complete
artist.
realms right now. Like 50
Right.
Cent is an artist in a different way, but he's always been adapting and he's always seen, he came out with, his own headphones to compete with Dre. And he's done all this stuff throughout his career of like, trying to make money in different avenues and trying to be successful in different ways. Whereas it doesn't feel like that's Drake. Drake is genuinely just looking to be a musician and be an artist his whole career.
He'll come out with an album
Yeah.
instead of another business venture, which I'm sure he has business ventures too, but he comes out with albums and they're usually relatively cutting edge, you know.
I think it gets tiring. Like I look at you and your career and I'm like, how do you sustain it? And how do you not get tired of the process? And it's stressful. And, there's a part of it that you love. And then there must be the part of like so much admin that you have to do. And then the organization of getting music videos and the organization of getting, the production and the sound right and all these things. And I'm like, it's genuinely impressive to see how long you can sustain a music career and how you don't burn out.
I mean, for me personally, it I wish I had more, I'm really independent. Like I don't have a manager. I don't have anybody that helps me with my social media. All the things that I'm saying, also you could be like, well, you should get one. Well, you should get one. Because like I could use some help, man. I could use some help. I used to have more help than I have now. I do have some people. I got my boy that helps me with my email list, and I got my booking agents and some other people that help me make the music itself. But yeah, it's a lot. But I gotta say, after all these years, I still just really like doing it, man. I just really enjoy. There's a couple aspects of it I like. I like when you think of a lyric that you think nobody's ever thought of before. When you get a melody or something that just like really makes you feel good. Or when you're finished with a song, and you're like, oh, that's nice. I'm excited about that one. Of course, then there's like sometimes you'll be really excited about a song, and then you put it out and nobody seems to really care about it too much, which can be like a little bit of a down thing. Or you spend a shitload of time and money, which for me is like money out of my own pocket, on say a music video, and it kind of doesn't get much traction, you know what I'm saying? But for me, even in that case, I'm still glad that I spent the money and did the video. Like I'd rather have done the art than like done whatever probably responsible thing that I could have done with the money. You know what I mean? But it
Well,
is a lot.
it is
It is a
responsible.
lot. It's easy to burn out, and you can see why people do, you know.
But arguably it is responsible because this is the way you make a career. This is the way you make money. So like you investing time and money, sometimes it pops off, sometimes it doesn't. I think everyone's gone through that, but you willing to take that risk is kind of what got you to the place you're in right now. So if you all of a sudden are like super protective of the things that you have, then you're not going to be able to sustain it because it just slowly eats away.
That's true. That's true. I like that. In that way, it's like fishing. You like, or playing baseball. Like, you know, the top baseball players bat 300, which means 70% of the time they get out. They're out. You know what I mean? And fishermen, I don't know the fucking percentage, but you cast, you don't get anything. You cast, you don't get anything. Maybe you got really expensive bait. You cast, you don't get anything. That's me spending fucking money on a music video that nobody gives a shit about, which happens to be a lot. But I've also spent like no money on a music video that kind of blows up or whatever. And then you ask yourself, like, so what if it blows up or if it doesn't blow up? It's still something cool that you did. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and yeah, you just have to. The tough thing is, like I said before, there's a balance between making art and having fun, and being responsible and wanting to buy a house. You know, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's the part of it that makes the whole thing stressful. The part of it that's like, am I doing enough? That's all I think about is, am I doing enough? What could I be doing? And social media doesn't always help, because you'll see somebody else doing something, you'll be like, oh, I should be doing that. You'll see somebody else doing something, oh, I should be doing that, you know? But in reality, like, you don't have to do any of that shit. You know what I mean? And everybody does it a different way. But you know, I think that it wouldn't change. Like if you have 100 followers, 100,000 followers, or 100 million followers, I think that you're going to think that something's wrong or whatever. Actually, honestly, if I had 100 million followers, I think I'd be okay. But it's true that it's more money, more problems. That's the fucking truth. I was walking with my girl the other day. I live here in San Diego, and we were walking on Sunset Cliffs. And this is where rich people live in mansions, and you overlook the Pacific Ocean. And like, I was looking at this house, I was like, so now I got to find a gardener. Now I got to find a guy to take care of the pool. Now I got to find somebody to clean the rooms. I got to buy there's probably 8 bedrooms in a house. I got to buy 8 fucking beds. I got to buy furniture to fit all those rooms. Now all the walls got to have some kind of painting on. Like, it's like, who even wants a mansion? It's fucking more responsibility than it's worth. You know what I mean? Like, it's truly more money, more problems.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's more problems I would happily take. So if anyone wants to continue giving me more money, I will happily take on more problems to have that money. But I think you're definitely right of like, you know, the attainment of the goals that you want to achieve. And this is like, you know, taking your example to the next level of like, no matter what you achieve, you also get added responsibility. And there's something scary about like, you know, right now, if you have, you know, 10,000 followers versus 100 million followers, the responsibility that you feel of like, oh shit, I got to keep making content because I have 100 million people who watch my stuff and they want to see my stuff. And all of a sudden it's a lot of pressure. Whereas like before, you can kind of create without pressure because you're just doing your own thing. And then you're like, oh shit, if I didn't get this many views from my 100 million, then it went down, it goes up. And then all of a sudden you're focused on different things. You're really just focused on outcomes rather than the creativity. Whereas probably before you were focused on the creativity.
Yeah. I've been through that. I've been through that whole thing, you know, when I was signed to a record label deal many years ago. And I experienced that. I experienced like, you know, what they want you to make is hit songs. And if you keep giving them songs and they say, this isn't a hit, this isn't a hit, this isn't a hit, after a while, you kind of like throw up the proverbial office supply pile and go, well, what do you want from me? You know what I mean? And then
Was
you,
that with Def Jam?
yeah. But it could be with anybody, you know, there's hundreds of thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but there's thousands of artists who've experienced kind of the same thing, you know, where it's like you get signed because you are considered good at doing a thing, but then once you're pressured to do the thing in a certain way, maybe you kind of fall apart, you know what I mean? Which I did. I also had my own issues, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that thing you're talking about where you get basically into like a coma of over analysis where you don't trust your own instincts anymore because as far as you can tell, they've been wrong in the past. Or like take that example when you had 100 million followers. Every single person that's that famous, every time they put out something, if you have 100 million followers, 1 million people are going to tell you how bad it sucks. 1 million people. So you have to have a really thick skin too, which is difficult for a lot of artists because they're kind of sensitive people to begin with, you know? So if there's this outpouring of people telling you suck, which in the internet age is worse because they can actually say it to you in a way that you could see it, it's got to be pretty difficult. It's almost easier to live in your own little niche where people either know you and like you or don't really give a shit about you anyway. You know what I mean? A lot of artists talk about that. I heard Louis C.K. talk about when he first became famous. You know, he had this crazy brand of like raunchy comedy and like everybody that came to his shows loved it. But then there was something that happened that made it so everybody knows who he is. And like, who's this? And then it's not for the masses. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but the point is that there is a lot of pressure when there's more and more people watching you, I would imagine, you know.
Well, I think you're definitely right. I think Louis C.K. and comedians in general have like a really weird kind of time with it because like they have out of context 3-minute videos out of a hour long special that has context and it's taken out of and it's just like that one snippet is offensive and it's like I guess but also like it wasn't supposed to be filmed like it wasn't in like you kind of have to see it all to kind of understand what the journey is and kind of it's also just people on stage talking like it's all jokes like that is the deal with comedians are not there saying hey this is a lecture on how to live life they're saying hello I'm supposed to make you feel like you laugh and some of these jokes you may not like because they stretch the boundaries of like social norms but like ultimately the purpose of this is trying to get you to laugh. I have a problem with people being annoyed at comedians if they're not funny versus like, I think, I don't know. I just think that if a comedian is genuinely going for a joke, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's kind of the lay of the land. But
it's actually, and it's just like the percentage I was saying before, because I've done stand-up comedy and I've studied it and I'm friends with a lot of comedians. That 30 percentile, I was saying like the best batters in baseball, they get on base 30% of the time. In comedy, like every joke that you write, every premise, the idea that you have, every idea you might have, by the time you get to your hour-long special or whatever, that's only fucking 2% of the shit you initially thought of, at least for most comedians. But maybe once you've been doing it for 20 years, you kind of weed out the bullshit way faster, But yeah, you have to try stuff. People are improvising sometimes on stage, just saying stuff in the moment. That's why it's funny to me when people pull out these little clips from somebody like Howard Stern or Joe Rogan or somebody. It's like, yo, these dudes just talk for like 6 hours straight. You like, if you did that, there wouldn't be one little thing that you said that'd be a little fucked up. You know what I mean? And also like, you've never said something you regretted before. You've never said something that maybe a little later you'd be like, damn, I shouldn't have said that. Everybody acts like they're perfect and infallible, but that's just how it is. We want the people that are at the top, they want to take them down. You know what I mean? But
well, I don't know.
We also make mountains out of molehills here. You know what I'm saying? There's all these, like, there's more important shit that people should be mad about than the things that people are mad about half the time concerning people they don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you care? What do you give a fuck what Joe Rogan says anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is Joe Rogan why is Joe Rogan's opinion in the political discourse at all? He's just some dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, no problem with him. I'm not for or against him. I'm just saying he's the good example of someone who's just like a guy that fucking talks. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do we give a shit so much? He's probably just as confused about it as I am.
He says it constantly. And I remember I've seen so many clips of him going, I don't know why anyone gets annoyed at me. I'm just a dumb comedian, UFC fight commentator. And if you get offended that my dumb brain doesn't really know everything, well, that's on you because I don't claim to know everything. And I would never. And that's why I interview the people that I interview because they're experts in their field. And I think that's what made Joe so successful was like, he has always portrayed the lay person. Like
right.
He's just like every person. He's the guy who's like, wait, what does that mean? Wait, I don't really understand that. Can you explain that again? Or like, that's honestly, when I listen to the way he interviews people, I'm actually like, oh, he's not scared of putting himself out there and be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That made sense. And he's like capable of doing that. And so there's like this weird kind of enjoyment that I think people get because he's not building himself up to be this great kind of genius. He's, if anything, trying to build himself down so that he's just on the learning journey constantly.
Right. Yeah. That's probably why he does so well. That's probably why he does so well. And as far as him maybe saying some things that people don't agree with, you don't got a friend like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't got friends that you'd be like, yo, you think that? And you're still their friend. You know what I mean? I've had friends say fucked up shit, I probably said fucked up shit. But
Everyone has said fucked up shit. The difference
yeah.
is it just hasn't been recorded.
I have a song. I have a song on my upcoming album called "Shit I Used to Do," where it's like shit I used to do and things I used to say. And the first verse is about like being old and there's physical things I can't do anymore. Actually, the third verse is about that. But the second verse is about like things that I used to say in my rap songs that I like listen to my old lyrics. And I'm like, I can't believe I would never say that now. You know what I mean? Homophobic shit, misogynistic shit. And I'm just addressing that I would never say it now. And the point is, I don't, in politics, people aren't allowed to flip flop, or people aren't allowed to be like, I'm sorry I said that. I changed my mind. I have a different opinion now. I've never understood that. Why aren't we allowed to change our minds? So
Yeah. I find it weird where it's like, politicians, they're like, I believe this. And then they're like, what about this video 10 years ago where you said you believed something else? And it's like, yeah, that was 10 years ago.
yeah.
Like, am I not?
But some of them really are just like, they believe whatever the polls tell them they're supposed to believe.
Yeah. But I think as people, like, we should be able to change our minds. Like, that is the whole point. Like, oh, I was wrong. Like, I've said things and believed things that were wrong. I probably still do. And I will change my mind constantly. And if someone can present an argument or present it to me in a way that enlightens me, like, I genuinely think that as soon as you start saying, no, I'm right, stop listening, I'm always right, well, then that, if anything, proves that ultimately you're wrong.
But for some reason, the public likes those people. They like these strong, these like, that's why Donald Trump got elected here. People like people that have present this all-knowing thing. They're like, because they think they like want to believe that they're true. Because we all know that we don't know shit. So we want to believe that there's some leader that will lead us to the places that leaders lead us to. Lead me, leader, lead us to salvation. Because we don't know anything. We're sinners that don't know shit. So when we see someone that's like, I know all the answers, that's why we vote for them. You know what I mean? But in reality, they don't know shit either. But there's some people that are insane enough, Donald Trump, to believe that they do. Most religious leaders.
Well, I personally think if you're insane enough to believe that you can lead a country, you're kind of insane. What kind of egomaniac needs that kind of shit? Like, the amount, like, at that level, especially the way it's all run now, it's all like backstabbing and kind of you making deals with people. Like, if you said to me, Aaron, do you want to run a country? Fuck no, I don't want to run a country. That shit looks fucking awful, and I don't need those problems in my life. But that, to me, is a sign that I am better mentally. I'm in a better place emotionally to be like, I don't need that power and I don't need that kind of responsibility to make me feel fulfilled, because that is ultimately what most people think is like, fuck that job. Why would I ever want to do that? That sounds absolutely awful.
The people that should be doing it are people that like work for volunteer agencies, feeding the hungry and shit like that. They're the people who should be doing it, but they're just like you. They wouldn't want to do that. It's a crazy amount of responsibility that sounds like hell.
And always in the public eye, and they're just like, I just want to give my impact in a different way. I want to be able to do it my way. And like, the challenge with politics is like, you become a cog in the machine. I think the system breaks people. Like, I think I would say, this is my idealistic self coming out, I would say I would hope that most politicians get into politics wanting to change the world for a better place, but the system I can't even speak.
In and of itself,
the system in and of itself breaks them, in the sense of like, you have these career politicians and you're young and they kind of force you to play by their rules. And then all of a sudden you're a career politician and you've been playing by certain rules, and you all of a sudden become a person of the system.
Right. Yeah, I agree. In and of itself.
In and of itself.
In and of itself. In and of it. In and of it. In and of it. In and of it. That sounds very British. In and of it.
In and of it.
In and of it.
I think we found some lyrics. I didn't know why that word really stuffed me up today. I've been able to say it before, and then you said it, and I was like, straight away, one of those days.
In and of itself.
You
In and
know,
of itself.
yeah.
Well, it's a lot of ends, and then you know.
I think I lost myself in the middle of saying it, but you have an album coming up. Like, when is that album due to drop?
September probably. The album's called Lifetime Achievement Award. Uh, it's already finished. It's mixed and mastered as of a couple days ago, but it's not a summery album, so we don't want to put it out for the summer. It's just not, like some music is like, yeah, summertime jam. This album is not the summertime jam. It's more like a fall, winter kind of project. And it's all produced by my friend Kush Modi. And it's 11 songs, and it's very introspective. And it's got like kind of a vintage sound, and it's cool, man. I like it. It's different.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the drop, because I think it's been a little while since your last album.
Yeah, my last album was 2019. God damn. But in my defense, I have dropped a pretty good amount of singles since last year. I dropped a bunch of singles. I probably dropped an album worth of singles since my last album, if you just put them all in the same playlist. So I'm not that lazy. You know what I mean? I've been working.
You're active. You're active.
Yeah.
I think like we said, putting an album together is a different type of work. Like it
This one was tough. This one was a challenging one to put together. Like there's a good amount of songs that are like on the cutting room floor that just like didn't work out. And it was work. It was work for sure. But I'm happy with the way it came out.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it, because yeah, I think an album is like a chronicle of your journey as an artist in a weird way. It's like it says more about you than singles. And singles, look, I'm just glad you're active, man. That's ultimately what we like to see. And I think, in a single era world, albums are underrated, but I think there's still a huge place for albums. Like the journey of an hour, or a journey of 40 minutes or so, is like kind of a really cool experience that is a little bit underrated at the moment.
That's a good point, man. And if you listen, I have a bunch of albums I put out previously, and if you were to listen to them, you would definitely get at least, like every like 2 or 3 years, I just go listen to like all my shit that I've ever done. You know what I mean? And if you do that, I mean, it's different because I actually know myself fucking better than anybody knows me. You know what I'm saying? So when I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I was feeling at that time. Oh yeah. It really does reflect how I was doing at the time, and a single doesn't. A single doesn't.
Do you marvel at kind of the things you've gone through when you listen back to your own music?
I find marvel.
Like,
what do you mean by marvel?
As in, do you like enjoy it? Do you look back and go like, it was pretty amazing that this is all the things that we went through, or that I went through?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if I think it's amazing. Just kind of like, oh, that's true. That's true. That happened. More just true than amazing.
It must remind you of things, though, for sure.
Oh yeah. It puts me just like to bring it back, just like Anton Ego and Ratatouille, transporting his childhood when he took a bite of the ratatouille. Like when I hear certain songs that I made, there's a kind of a few things that'll happen. One thing is it'll take me back to like I remember thinking of lyrics or the general idea of the song, like the actual construction of the song itself. And then I also remember events that occurred that led to the being inspired to write that song in the first place. I might remember like the studio, like I've had a lot of different like houses and apartments and studios over the years. Like I've really moved a lot, since I've been doing this professionally. It'll take me back to those places. It'll take me back to people that I was with at the time, girlfriends that inspired that breakup song or whatever, so yeah, it does really take you back. And I guess you do marvel at it in a way, because it can definitely bring up, you remember what emotions you felt at the time. You remember what you cared about and what kind of things you considered important at the time that maybe you don't consider important at all now, or how heartbroken you were at a time. And now years later, you're like, I don't care about that at all. I have a song, my new album has a song about that too, about how when you're heartbroken, say you went through a bad breakup, how it just seems like the worst thing ever and it'll never go away or whatever. And then it seems like a couple of years later, it's just like, you're just like, oh, fuck. I really, really, really don't care about that anymore. Time does heal everything, I guess, that concept. But yeah, listening to your old stuff can bring up a lot of emotions. Or so yeah, I guess you do marvel at it.
Well, I can tell you, I haven't listened to my very first episode since it dropped. So
I used to do a podcast, and I would never have listened to my podcast. I had friends that would be like, "Oh yeah, I got to listen to that. I haven't listened to that yet." I'd be like, "You don't have to. You don't have to."
Yeah, it's weird because like I want strangers to listen to it. I don't want my friends and family to listen to it.
Exactly.
Because it's like a different version of me, and they're too close. And I like when I get feedback from my friends and like my family, and they're like, "That was really good." I feel weird about it. Like I don't believe them in a way. It's like, okay, like you
think they're just being nice.
Yeah. I don't know, but like sometimes, like I had a friend of mine recently just message me out of the blue and be like, "Hey, I listened to this podcast. Like I thought it was really good," and I was just like I was like, "Thank you, I appreciate it," but also I'm like it made me feel strange.
Like they saw you naked or something.
Yeah, and it was a podcast that I personally didn't like of myself. Like I just think it wasn't my best performance, and it's interesting that like that's just my inner critic talking versus someone who listens to it objectively and is like, that's good. And yeah, I find it, you never really know what songs, like you were saying, there's songs that you invest time and money in and you think will do well, and then others that you don't think will do well. And it's kind of just whatever it means to the people who listen to it.
Yeah. And it's kind of for you. Like if you go back and listen to your own music, you might hear something that you're like, why is this? You'd be like, why is this so not popular? This one's really good, And then maybe it is, and just everybody doesn't know shit, or they just never heard it. I'm curious, what would make it so you think you have a bad performance in terms of your podcast? You said that the guy that listened to it heard the episode that you didn't like. Why didn't you like it?
I didn't like it because there's a natural flow that I can tend to find with certain guests. And I think we have it. It's very conversational. Like there's no effort here. Like I'm not like, oh shit, what's my next question?
Right. Yeah. We barely talked about me.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's kind of like the joy of this is that like you can always come back and we can just naturally talk and do more episodes because we're just going to find cool shit to talk about because we just have opinions on stuff. But I've definitely found episodes where like the guest is cagey and I struggle in those because I'm like, I keep searching for like little pockets that we can go into. And the episode that she mentioned was just not that. Like I personally didn't enjoy recording it that much. And I didn't enjoy the release of it that much. But ultimately it's like, hey, if you like it, you like it. I'm never gonna smack that. But it's like, for me personally, as a critic, as someone who wants to get better, as someone who wants to continue to develop, I definitely have episodes where I'm like, yeah, I could have done better there, or that wasn't a smooth episode. We need to kind of iron that shit out.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, that the comparison to songs in that case would be like, I mean, I have songs that I've done in the past that I hate that are like popular, like the opposite of what I was saying. Sometimes other people be like, yo, that shit's so good. In your head, you're like, really? That shit was whack. You know what I mean? And maybe something in that podcast that you found to be not smooth or not flowy, that person found to be intriguing, or maybe there's some there's could be some quote or a couple sentences that they found helpful in their own life, in their own journey, that you didn't even notice that way because all you heard was like you stuttered when you said in and out of, or whatever. What was the thing? In and above itself, or whatever.
Yeah.
In and of itself, yeah. You're worried about your stuttering, and they're like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." You know?
Yeah. There's definitely that aspect. I think I'm very close to it. Obviously, as soon as we finish recording, I'm going to re-listen to this in the editing process and make sure that like it does sound good, and make sure that there's, we can't hear the singer in the background in the room over, that kind of stuff. Like make
sure.
If
you hear me crunching on these combos, you can feel free to edit that out while you're talking. Eating these classic pizzeria pretzel combos. I'm not sponsored by them. I've just loved these since I was a little kid.
Not sponsored yet.
Not sponsored yet. Exactly.
Yeah. So
shout out to I got a show called Snacks with Wax, by the way. If you've never seen it, I got a food review show where I review snacks. I've done several episodes for anybody out there that's never heard of me before.
Well, there you go. I love food reviews. Me and my friends once did a food review of like CC's versus Doritos, like years and years and years ago. We just filmed this like 5 minutes.
I actually don't know CC's.
Oh, really?
International snacks vary from country to country. Doritos everywhere.
Yeah.
You know these? You got these?
No, we don't have combos.
So nobody there's ever combined the delicious taste of a pretzel with pizzeria cheese?
No, we have shake.
See how it's like in the middle there?
Oh, that looks so good. The crunch is getting me.
I've been eating these since I was like a little kid.
Well, we did say before we started, for anyone who is wondering about the crunching, I did say I'm a fan with Danny DeVito crunches on shows because he just eats in a certain way. So it kind of opened the door for like, hey, he's just going to snack. And I think who else was eating on when I interviewed them? Mickey Facts I interviewed, and he was crunching.
Mickey Snacks.
Mickey Snacks.
Mickey Snacks.
So he was crunching on pretzels as well on the show. So that was.
Wait. What kind of pretzels? Combos?
No, thin, kind of like just like very, I don't know, red, but it was just like.
Sounds boring.
Well, man.
Sounds like they don't have a delicious cheesy center. Oh shit. This one I found a hollow one. See it?
No.
You don't really want to see it. You don't want
Can I just say, of course, at the very moment you said delicious cheesy center, it was the one that was hollow. That's what we call it. Good timing.
I'm obsessed with these things, man.
Well, man, I only have one more question for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
And it is the hardest question that I have on the show. It's the only question that I plan on the show. But if you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, cannot be your own music, it can be any genre of music, what would it be?
That's tough because like, who knows? Maybe they should listen to fucking Beethoven or something. I don't know, but I'm gonna go ahead with the first Far Side album, Bizarre Ride to the Far Side, because that when I was a kid and that came out, that's probably the most influential album on me as a kid, because it was like this rap group and they just sound like they're having so much fun, and the music is really funky. It's really funny, but at times it's dense and serious. But it just sounds like lightning in a bottle. It sounds like they couldn't do it again because there was just a time and a place and a bunch of people that got together and had a bunch of fun. And I think with certain albums that happens. And then, I mean, their second album was great too, but yeah, it was just lightning in a bottle, that album.
There you go. I love that answer. Lightning in the bottle. Make sure you check it out. But obviously, make sure you check out Wax, the one and only Wax, the one and only, the Hip Hop Hustle podcast's one and only Wax. Make sure you check him out. He's on on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. I highly recommend. He's got some amazing YouTube videos as well.
Thanks,
You've
man.
also got a track that came out a while ago that I'm a real fan of as well, and just a really nice flow in there. It's I Ain't a Real Man. So that's one to check out as well. But also No Tomorrow, the single with Mime came out as well
Oh yeah, yeah.
recently. So can check that out. But Project in September is coming soon. Stay tuned. It's going to be a fall project. It's ready to go. I'm excited by it. But man, is there anything else you wanted to plug? Anything else you wanted to shout out?
At Big Wax, BIGWAX. That's my Instagram. I think my Facebook is like facebook.com/wax.com, WAXDOTCOM. And my website is wax.com.com, WAXDOTCOM.com.
There it is. You can't miss Wax. Man, as I said, absolute pleasure. This was a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to have to do this again.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it, Aaron.